There is a truth that no one has told you about silence. You likely grew up believing you needed to explain yourself, justify your actions, shout louder to be heard, prove your worth, show you were right, and defend your honor from every attack. But today, I will reveal something that very few of the chosen one have understood in time. Your silence possesses a power that your words will never have. And that is precisely why they are desperate to make you speak. Have you ever noticed how certain people seem to provoke you all the time? As if there were a hidden desire to push you over the edge, force you to react, and drive you into a confrontation that was never yours to begin with. This is no coincidence. This is spiritual strategy. Because the very moment you open your mouth to defend yourself before those sent to destroy you, you hand over the key to your energy into their hands. And that is exactly the game that has been played against you since you were born marked. When the chosen one falls silent, something spiritual happens in the unseen realm. It is as if a curtain were drawn back and heaven itself begins to operate on their behalf. The entities that were sent to confuse you lose their target. The adversary that fed on your reaction begins to suffer spiritual starvation. And they become furious because they can no longer reach you. Have you noticed how the adversary becomes more agitated the more you keep quiet? The less you respond, the more they invent stories, the more they spread lies, the more they try to provoke you in absurd ways. Do you know why? Because your silence is a sentence for them. Your silence is the weapon that the Almighty placed in your hands and that you have never known how to use properly. There is a profound spiritual reason for this. Each word you speak carries a frequency, a vibration, a piece of your soul. When you speak in self-defense against those who do not deserve even your attention, you are transferring sacred energy into their broken vessel. You are feeding the very demon that came to bring you down. You are empowering the curse they tried to plant in you. And worst of all, you are wasting the spiritual fuel that the Almighty gave you to win battles that have not even begun yet. Chosen one, understand once and for all, you are not called to argue with everyone who crosses your path. You are called to win in silence, to build in silence, to grow in silence, while they destroy themselves trying to understand why you no longer react. And here is the point that almost no one realizes. When you stop talking, the Almighty Himself begins to speak for you. When you cease explaining yourself, the universe takes it upon itself to expose the truth. When you fall silent, the angels are released to work on your cause. There is an ancient passage that says the Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent. This is not religious poetry. This is a spiritual law that has been functioning for millennia. Every time the chosen one keeps quiet in the face of injustice, a much greater force goes into action. But if you open your mouth, you interrupt the process. You hinder the Almighty Himself from acting in your favor. You take upon yourself a battle that was never meant to be yours. And then you lose in many ways at once. Have you ever felt that something within you does not fit into the world, as if your soul knew a truth that your mind cannot yet name? As if, deep down, you realized that these constant provocations, these people who appear to attack you for no reason, these environments where they seem to want to silence you in another way, all of this is part of something much larger than simple human interaction. It is not madness. It is not paranoia. It is not excessive sensitivity. It is a sign. It is your soul recognizing that there is a game being played against you in invisible layers, and that your silence is one of the few weapons that remain intact. Think carefully. What if these people who provoke you were not simply people, but instruments, used to make you lose spiritual authority? And what if every impulsive response you've given in the past had been an involuntary vote in favor of your own defeat? That is why I have prepared a powerful ebook for you, The Chosen Guardian's Handbook for Family Protection. This ebook is not just reading, it is a map that reveals who is behind the constant provocations that come your way, who are the people used as instruments to make you speak when you should be silent, and how to use silence as a spiritual shield to fortify your homestead, your children, your marriage, and your mind. This ebook was created for those who have awakened enough to understand that arguing with the adversary sent to you is handing them your soul on a silver platter, and that the chosen one, learns how to fight without shouting, to win without explaining, and to destroy curses without even looking at them. The link is in the first pinned comment at the top, but I must warn you, This type of content rarely remains available for long. What is in these pages challenges the narratives that many have an interest in keeping intact, because the chosen one who learns to be silent becomes untouchable, and an untouchable cannot be manipulated, cannot be controlled, cannot be brought down. There have been attempts to silence this knowledge before. Do not wait for the right moment. The right moment is now, the chosen one, because you did not come across this text by accident. Download it now and comment below. I am chosen, and I am downloading the ebook. Now that you have decided to act, the next truth I will reveal to you will completely change the way you see every conversation in your life. Because there is a secret about silence that the adversary prays you never discover. Every time someone attacks you with words, with gossip, with accusations, with insinuations, they are doing so because they have been spiritually authorized to test you. Yes, you read that right. There is a spiritual authorization behind every verbal attack you receive. And that authorization is renewed every time you react. Every time you respond in kind, you sign a new invisible contract that allows the same attack to return in a different form, with a different person, at another time. That is why you have the feeling that you are always going through the same situations. It is not always the same situation. It is the same spirit working through different faces, waiting for the day you finally go silent and break the cycle. Have you ever noticed that the most powerful people in the world, those who carry true spiritual authority, almost never explain themselves? They do not waste time responding to attacks. They do not insist on appearing to defend themselves. They simply move forward. And the result is that time takes care of exposing the adversary, of bringing down the false ones, of destroying the lies planted against them. It is a spiritual law. It is as if the universe itself had a justice system that is only activated when the chosen one refuses to activate justice on their own. The moment you try to do justice with your own mouth, you deactivate divine justice. It is like cancelling a heavenly surgery to try to perform the procedure with your own hands. You get hurt, you get tired, you get contaminated, and on top of that, you do not solve the problem. There are 3 types of silence that the chosen one needs to master. The first is the silence of war. This is the silence you use when you realize that someone is trying to push you off course. It is the silence that does not even give the satisfaction of a facial expression to those who provoke you. It is the silence that makes the adversary feel invisible before you, and there is nothing that wounds the spiritual pride of those sent as much as being treated as if they did not exist. The second is the silence of construction. This is the silence you use when the Almighty is preparing something great in your life. The chosen one who announces plans loses the blessing. The chosen one who talks too much about what the Almighty is, opening doors to envy, the evil eye and directed curses. That is why when something great is being built in the unseen realm, heaven sends a message: be still and wait. The third silence is the most powerful of all. It is the silence of discernment. This silence is that moment when you stand before an absurd situation and simply observe, with no rush to pass judgment, no need to give an opinion, and no desire to participate in what is happening. This silence positions you above the confusion. It places you in a spiritual location where no spell can reach. And here is a revelation that may reorganize your entire life. Every time you speak too much about your pains, your problems, your achievements, and your dreams, you open spiritual portals in your life. Each word is a key, each sentence is a door, and there are many people around you who pretend to care, who pretend to root for you, who pretend to be your friends, but in truth, they are merely collecting information to use against you in the unseen realm. They hear your pain and will ask for even greater pain for you in inverted prayer. They hear your dream and will ask that it not come to fruition. They hear your achievement and will ask for everything to crumble. You think it is an exaggeration, but the chosen ones who have awakened know exactly what I am talking about. This is why many people who have everything going for them remain stagnant. It is not a lack of talent, not a lack of effort, not a lack of faith. It is an excess of talk in the wrong ears. Have you ever felt that knot in your stomach after telling someone something important? That sensation of spiritual regret, as if your soul knew that information should never have left your mouth? That is your discernment screaming at you. It is the Almighty sending a warning. The chosen one, be silent. The chosen one, retreat. The chosen one, guard what is sacred. Because there are things in your life that are like little seeds, and a little seed only grows underground, hidden in silence, away from the eyes of others. When you unearth the seed to show others that it is germinating, you kill the very miracle that the Almighty was performing. And then you wonder why your promises are not fulfilled, why your dreams do not take off, why your prayers seem to go unanswered. Often it is not the Almighty who is delaying, it is you who are talking too much. And it was with this in mind, the Chosen One, that this ebook, the Chosen Guardian's Handbook for Family Protection, carries even greater weight at this moment in your life, because it does not just teach you to protect your homestead from visible attacks. It teaches you to close your mouth at the right moments, to identify which people in your circle are using your words as spiritual ammunition against you, and to build a siege of silence around your family that no curse can penetrate. This ebook reveals which types of conversations you should never have with certain people, even if they are close relatives, even if they are old friends, even if they seem trustworthy. It shows the spiritual signs that appear when someone is being used as a channel of attack against you, and most importantly, it gives you the exact prayers and decrees to seal your mouth when the adversary is trying to make you speak. The link is in the first pinned comment, at the top of the comments. The Chosen One. This knowledge bothers many people who benefit from gossip, who feed on uncontrolled speech, who gain power every time someone awakens and opens up too much in the wrong place. That is why they have tried to silence this type of content before, and that is why it may not be available for much longer. Comment below. I am chosen and I am downloading the ebook, because this is the first act of faith that will begin to change everything. Now, with the commitment made, let me tell you a truth that will close the circle of what you are learning today. There are people in your life, the Chosen One, who only approach you when they need something. They vanish when you are doing well and appear when they hear you are going through a rough patch. They feign concern, feign affection, feign interest, but their real objective is to confirm information so they can keep operating against you. And what these people hate most in the world is when the Chosen One goes silent. It is when you answer the call and reply with monosyllables. It is when you no longer share the details of your life. It is when you stop reacting with emotion to provocations. It is when you become an enigma to them. Because an enigma cannot be predicted, cannot be manipulated, and cannot be attacked with precision. A silent Chosen One is a constantly moving target, and no spell hits a constantly moving target. You need to understand that silence is the language of spiritual generals. Every great strategist knows that information is power, and that information in the wrong hands is guaranteed destruction. The Almighty did not choose you by accident. He gave you enough discernment to notice when the atmosphere changes, when someone's gaze carries something different, when an apparently innocent conversation hides a trap. But it is useless to have this discernment if you keep opening your mouth before processing what you are feeling. The awakened Chosen One learns to listen more and speak less, learns to observe before acting, learns to let the other person expose themselves first, learns that whoever speaks first loses in most spiritual negotiations. And there is a spiritual negotiation happening in every conversation of your life, even if you don't realize it. Each dialogue is a duel of energies. Each well-placed silence is a quiet victory. Have you noticed that when you go silent in the face of an unfair accusation, life itself takes care of showing the truth later? Have you noticed that when you don't defend yourself, the one who accused you ends up tangled in their own lies and exposes themselves on their own? This is the universe working for the Chosen One who trusts. This is the Almighty honoring the one who refuses to fight with human weapons. Because when you use your mouth to defend yourself, you descend to the level of the adversary. You enter his land, his territory, his rules. But when you go silent, you force the adversary to rise to your spiritual level, and that is where he collapses. He cannot handle the pressure from above. He does not survive the light of the Chosen One who refuses to argue, and he begins to self-destruct in front of you, without you needing to lift a single finger. There is an ancient wisdom that says loose lips sink ships. This applies to you too, the Chosen One, but in reverse. While the adversaries die by their mouths, you live by the mouth that learns to stay shut. Each word you swallow is a life you gain. Each response you don't give is a blessing you preserve. Each explanation you don't offer is a door you close so that a curse cannot enter. The silent chosen one is the invincible chosen one. And the adversaries know this better than anyone, which is why their strategy is always the same. Provoke you until you speak, irritate you until you react, destabilize you until you lose control. Because the second you lose control of your mouth, they gain control over your life. But today that changes. Today you understand once and for all that your silence is not weakness, not cowardice, not a retreat. Your silence is the ultimate manifestation of your spiritual authority. It is the scepter you hold in your hand without needing to show it to anyone. It is the invisible crown that the Almighty has placed on your head and that only those with spiritual eyes can see. When you go silent, you reign. When you do not respond, you govern. When you refuse to enter the argument, you have won before the battle even begins. And that is why those who were sent to destroy you are increasingly desperate. They feel they are losing their power about you. They realize that the spell no longer holds. They see that the curse returns to them like a boomerang, and they no longer know what to do. The final truth I need to deliver to you today is this. The world will continue trying to make you speak. They will invent stories about you, spread lies, create absurd situations, and place specific people in your path to get under your skin. And each of these attempts is a golden opportunity for you to prove to the Almighty that you have learned the lesson. Each time you remain silent in the face of a provocation, you climb one spiritual step higher. Each time you refuse to explain yourself, you receive more anointing. Each time you leave the adversary talking to himself, you release more angels to work in your life. And soon, very soon, you will look back and realize that while they were wasting energy trying to destroy you with words, you were building a spiritual empire in silence. While they tired themselves out speaking, you were growing quietly. While they lost credibility with every lie, you gained authority with every second of silence. The chosen one, this is the time. This is the turning point. Close this mental tab of someone who needs to explain themselves to everyone. Close this cycle of wasting your voice on battles that do not deserve your energy. Recognize the power of what the Lord has placed within you and begin to use silence as your main weapon. And take with you this e-book, The Chosen Guardian's Handbook for Family Protection, because it is the natural continuation of this awakening. It will teach you not only when to be silent, but how to transform each silence into a spiritual siege around your homestead, your children, your marriage, and your purpose. It reveals the silent prayers that those chosen by the Lord have used throughout the centuries to dismantle traps in the unseen realm, and the spiritual seals that shield your family against any verbal, energetic, or spiritual attack coming from the outside. The link is in the first comment, pinned at the top of the comments. Do not leave it for later, the chosen one, because the right moment is now and you did not come across this text by accident. Download it now and comment, "I am chosen and I am downloading the ebook." May your silence from this day forward scream louder than any voice that has ever tried to silence you. And may your peace be the living proof that you have understood, at last, that those chosen by the Lord win without needing to say a single word.